stretch to the edge. What a hurl by Jackson! Highlight reel touchdown! The season is going to be Louisville and drive. Louisville, national champion.
Hello, hello, hello. I am your host tonight, Kyle Spire, joined by Patrick Kelly and Josh Jacobs, and welcome back to another episode of the Third Banner Pod. Desmond, good to see you. We got a lot to talk about tonight, boys, but first, before we get into it, what have you guys been up to?
Man, I've been playing daddy over here. Kid's been crying. I was afraid.
You better specify.
I was afraid I had to specify. I was afraid the audience was gonna be treated to an hour of listening to my kid cry, but it sounds like he's asleep now. So everything's good. Pod. This is the first episode we've had since you guys were on the Rutherford show, man. You all killed it. I hope maybe we have some new listeners tonight that heard you all for the first time on that show. But, yeah, awesome job on Friday, Kyle.
Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. It was a great experience. I think it was good for me, Ross, and Ty to all get some experience doing something cool like that on a show that we all listen to and really respect Mike's work. So it was really good. It was a lot of fun. I will say Monday's episode with Jacob Lane from the state of Louisville, I feel like we just came in and everything was pretty relaxed. And it was like, all right, we're going to start. For some reason on Friday, it was like a lot of running around and chaos. And I was the one hosting, so I'm just like, I had people that kept running back and forth behind me, like as I'm waiting to start. I'm just got my list of stuff. And, of course, then the producer's like, hey, don't forget to read all this stuff, and he throws all these papers. But I've already got all that stuff because I wrote down word for word what Mike would say on his advertisements. So he's like trying to give me those, and we've like got to go live in 1 minute. I'm like, I already got all that stuff. And he's like, well, how could you possibly have that? I was like, I've got it. It's right here. I got it. And then like he's messing around behind me with his computer and stuff. And it worked out, and it went really well. I was happy, but like I just was like so nervous because like I was expecting it to be like it was on Monday. But I was like, are we going to get live on time? Is kind of what I was thinking. We were all scrambling around. We had to get Ross a microphone or headphones or something. It was crazy, but it was great. It was a good time. I've gotten a lot of feedback from that episode. I think it was all positive. So if anybody thought we sucked, they just haven't told us yet. So I think it went well. It was fun. It was a blast. Good evening, guys. Desmond says likes up. Yeah, please please subscribe if you like the content you hear tonight on the Third Banner Pod. Josh, what have you been up to, man?
I think you guys are aware, but I'm just stuck over here in Tornado Alley. Like I was grilling the other night, and I look over, and there's just a tornado. And then a couple minutes later, I hear the tornado sirens go off. So, man, just par for the course.
The day after tomorrow is just another Tuesday at Josh's house.
That's right. That's right.
I've never seen anything like it. Like, I don't understand why there are so many tornadoes where you live.
Dude, I think the way that it's been explained to me, and I'm not very like scientific, is that it's so flat here and there's not a lot of like trees or buildings or whatever. There's a lot of farmland that like those currents can really like build up power. I don't know if that's true. Maybe that's just the urban legend here. But I did want to say really quick, like, it was so awesome to listen to you guys. Like, not just because, like you're my friends and you're on there, but like you guys did really well. And like, I know you mentioned this a ton on the show, but like, who would have thought 12, 15 months ago that we'd be where we're at now? Like, it's just awesome. And like I can't thank everybody who tunes in every week and comments and likes enough. Like, we're just out here doing this for fun, and like it's really turned into something cool. And I know when I speak for myself and I speak for the guys, like, we're going to do everything we can to keep getting you better content, whether that's better guests, update our setups, whatever it is. Because, like, this is awesome, and it wouldn't be possible without you guys.
Yeah, I'm with you. Whatever. And if people have feedback, I'm always open to feedback about how to improve the show, things we could do better. And we do get some of that sometimes, but, we don't get a whole lot of it. So the more we get as far as just ideas you may have, the better. Doesn't mean we're going to do every little thing, but I mean, we're open to suggestions because there's a lot of content providers out there. We're well aware of that. And a lot of them do a really good job. Somebody in here right now say they're simulcasting Power 10 and us. So I don't know how that works as far as being able to hear two conversations at once, but I mean, hey, more power to you for having that kind of talent. Ezra, good to see you in here. He's already talking about the Rick Pitino stuff. Ezra, yeah, so he talked about Rick Pitino. Did you guys see where Rick Pitino went Hawk Tua on the Bluebellies? He did.
Kind of did, yeah.
We are going to talk about the Rick Pitino stuff, and I know there's been a lot of opinions, mine included. They gained a lot of traction today on Twitter, and then I know I heard a little bit of the radio show discussion on it. I was listening to Drive a little bit on the way home, and I heard Mark's take on it, which didn't surprise me at all. I know how he feels about Rick Pitino, so that is going to be something we get to later. We had Pat Kelsey's press conference. He updated the media on what's going on this summer with the basketball program. Had a couple of players get on there as well, so that was nice to see. And I want to start there. So Pat, what were your biggest takeaways, if any, from the press conference today?
I mean, I think you heard a lot of coach speak and a lot of the same things we've heard from Pat Kelsey every time he's been out there, which, if I was to say that about Kenny Payne, not a good thing. But with Pat Kelsey, he preaches the same stuff. Obviously, we've got to see it come to fruition. But, I mean, it's all about, putting in the work and this team coming together and being a unit.
The power of the unit.
Yeah, the power of the unit was a big theme today. So, a lot of the same stuff. I think if I look at the notes I kind of wrote down during that press conference, the theme that stood out to me is he talked about what's the most challenging thing when you've got 13 new guys and you're introducing a new system and stuff. And he said buy-in hasn't been a challenge for these guys. They all seem bought in so far. They're receptive. They've come ready to work. He said probably the most challenging thing is terminology. And this isn't like some unbelievable crazy thing, but it was interesting to me because, you think about basketball and basketball terminology and you think that, well, basketball people use the same terminology for this, same things, whether it's we're going to set elevator screens over here. We're going to, run a motion offense. But it sounds like a lot of coaches have different terminology for different sets and different plays and different situations. And he said that's the biggest thing is, you've got kids coming from different programs that use different terminology. So getting the kids to understand our terminology for things is the biggest challenge when you're talking about bringing 13 kids, mostly from different programs all across the country together. So again, there's not a ton there today. So, but that's the I guess the most interesting thing I took away from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, he talked heavily about the character piece, which is not surprising for Pat. He always likes to talk about how character beats Kyle, I'm sure you know this one. Character beats something for lunch or eats it for lunch.
Culture eats strategy for lunch.
Yes. That was basically his entire speech, just drawn out
Drinking
over like
from a fire
30
hose.
minutes. Yeah, drinking from eating the fire hose.
Or eating the fire. Yeah,
eating the fire hose.
that's right.
Yeah, and he talked about like people tried to say like who's looking like ahead of the other guys or like who's going to be in the starting lineup, and he just said his usual like I'm not going to know until the day before the game or the week before the first game. Like, and he did say whoever he starts in the Bahamas may not be who starts to start the season. So he goes, it may change. But yeah, it was a lot of the same. I actually got more out of the player interviews. But he also did mention that, he talked about Peyton Siva being on the staff, which I think is new. And if you think about Pat Kelsey's personality and Peyton Siva's personality, I mean, it's not that surprising that they gel really well.
Right.
Like they're both very positive, upbeat, religious even. And like they always just, they both have a strong work ethic. So it's no surprise that they mesh well. But he also mentioned that, Peyton Siva's got a great basketball mind. And no matter what job he'd be doing, he'd be successful in it. So I did think that was nice to give like a tip of the cap to Peyton. But yeah, otherwise, if you've watched a couple Pat Kelsey interviews, nothing there is going to surprise you.
Ezra, you're good, man. We are going to talk about the Rick Pitino stuff. We don't think you're being negative. It wasn't somebody else said they fire Rick at St. John's AD. Hey, man, we're going to get – I see where this chat wants to go tonight. We're going to get there, boys, but let's talk about
there
stuff first. Yeah, I got a lot of the same things. I like that he said Kenai Roos carries himself like a veteran. I took that out of the press conference. That was pretty cool. Some of the other notes I got there, I'm trying to think in my head, where did it go? I saw it earlier. But the big thing about not like June is not the evaluation period. It's more of the period where you monitor their workouts and just their work ethic. And apparently he went in depth a lot about how he's been doing this for a long time. And as he's learned, I'm guessing what he means is like at the beginning of his coaching career, maybe he felt like that was an evaluation period. And over time, he's realized that's not the time to be doing that. So I found that interesting because, and we're craving basketball information. So, of course, that's what everybody was asking the media. They wanted to know, like, hey, how's it looking? Who's standing out to you? But he said, I really don't know yet. I also had a lot about the Peyton Siva stuff in here. Some of the things that he talked about with Peyton Siva, which I find interesting that, he comes from the Pitino background. He's a connection to Pitino. And I find it interesting that a lot of the players from that regime have really good things to say about Louisville, the fan base, the program, the surrounding area. But I don't know. For whatever reason, it just hasn't resonated to Rick Pitino. But to keep it on Peyton Siva, man, it sounds like we got a real steal in what he's doing. And PK's big thing was he could succeed doing anything. So I found that very interesting. He said, hopefully we have all dogs. He doesn't want a dog or two. He wants everybody to be dogs. But I did like how he said Javon Hadley has been a very vocal leader. And it does sound like Javon has a leg up because they ran the same type of offense at Colorado. So I found that interesting. I could see where some other guys may have some stuff to learn. And one last thing that really stuck out to me was what was it he said about, he said the defense will look a lot like Alabama, but 99% of the time they'll play half-court defense. Yeah. And the defense's main goal is to just get the ball back to the offense to run back down to the other end of the court. So you'll play a slower defense and up-tempo offense, which is interesting because usually they go hand in hand.
Right.
Like usually a fast-paced offense comes with like a press or something.
Yeah. No, yeah, he doesn't. It doesn't sound like he wants his defense to pressure the ball much. Doesn't sound like we're going to run a bunch of zone. Sounds like it's going to be pretty straight man to man, which is pretty much what it looked like in the Charleston games I watched.
Right.
But the offense plays into the defense too when the pace of the offense is so fast. Especially when you're playing undisciplined teams, they tend to rush their offense to try to keep up with the pace. I think it's going to be extremely interesting when we play a Virginia, who's usually well coached, and they usually don't fall into that trap. They'll make you play their game. So it'll be interesting to see who wins that style between Kelsey and Bennett to try to make the other team, whether it's us slow down on offense or us trying to, make Virginia keep up offensively.
That I find to be the most interesting matchup in the ACC this year for us.
Yeah.
Virginia. One, because we never beat them, even when they've not been good lately. But the bigger reason is because, to me, the styles completely contrast for both teams. So can PK be the one to get Tony Bennett out of that style of play that they're so used to doing against us and executing? I'm really curious because they will do everything they can to slow us down. And our whole goal is to just go from end to end, like fast, waste no time whatsoever.
Yeah. I also thought one other thing as I was looking through notes, I think he kind of explained, and a lot of like diehard fans will know this, but he explained the Bahamas trip and what it does for practice and our team really well. We get in the summer, you get 4 hours a week with a player for basketball stuff, and that includes on court and off court, whether it's watching film or doing drills on court. Now, I'm pretty sure players can do pickup games and stuff by themselves without coaches present as much as they want, but coaching, you only get 4 hours a week, and then obviously you get other hours attributed to strength and conditioning. But the big advantage of the Bahamas trip is that you get, I think it's 10 actual practice days, like it would be in a regular season, that, other teams that aren't going on these trips don't get. And I think it's especially important for this team because, only 3 of these guys have ever played with each other. And so you're bringing in a bunch of guys that don't have that chemistry on the court, and you're getting that practice time that you wouldn't get if you didn't have this Bahamas trip. Plus, you're getting in-game action against other teams, which is huge too. So I did think that was a big thing, information-wise, that maybe your normal fan wouldn't understand about this Bahamas trip and why it's so important.
I'll tell you what else is a big thing is Mike Price saying we're 27 subs away from 1,000 subs. We are like right there. We have been running a marathon much faster than we thought, and we've been running it for several miles, and we see the finish line. It's like right there, man. Come on, guys. All right.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on Javon Hadley, what he said. Are you guys ready to move on to the players? What they talked about?
While you were out, I did touch on Javon Hadley being vocal.
Did you?
And
okay. And he's vocal.
Ahead of the curve.
Yep, he's ahead of the curve, but he also mentioned something really interesting. He said, I don't want to – I'm going to misquote him, but he said that, our defense is going to be, unreal, basically. He said, offense we're working through, but, our defense is going to be scary good. After the other places he's been. So I thought that was really interesting because I think that's a big worry for a lot of fans with Pat Kelsey is the pack the line defense and his statistical numbers at other schools. So if our defense is legit and we have all the guys we have on offense, that sounds really positive. He also mentioned, Rain Smith mentioned that this team is a little bit different than other teams he's had under Pat Kelsey. He said that this team, based on their skill set, how they're all so versatile, everything's being run a little bit differently than it was prior. So that's interesting too. And that's something you like to hear as a fan, that Pat Kelsey will adjust his style based on his players, which is what you want. So I thought a couple of those things were really interesting. Yep. And I don't know if you touched on the Okoye Gal thing, but it sounds like him and Chucky Hepburn have some ties, which is the first I'd heard anything about that too.
Okoye Gal 3.0. Is that what you're telling me? He's gonna make his third return?
Yeah, he's back.
Can be a grad assistant.
He's probably about my age, isn't he?
Yeah. He said he still lives in Louisville, which is interesting. I didn't know that.
That's cool.
Didn't know that
Yeah.
either. You
I mean,
know, a lot of those players, man, they never leave or they come right back. It's wild to see, especially the ones that go to NBA for years, and you think like they're just done with you, and then they come back.
Yeah. Well, I think the cool thing we've kind of learned through, that with Chucky and Agoy, and then of course Honest's big contribution in getting Ali to come here. You look at a program like Kentucky, and a lot of those guys seem to have a connection with Cal more so than UAK. Whereas these guys were coached by Pitino, and they're still telling players, hey, yeah, I love the University of Louisville. I love the city. Go there. And I'm not saying Cal's Kentucky players wouldn't do that, but you can see it here. Can't see it with Kentucky yet. And I think it's cool because there's a lot of programs where the kids, yes, they're alumni of the program, but like they're more so connected to the coach than the program, and they'll talk about the coach more so than the university they played for. So to hear that, Agal and Honest are pushing players here is awesome. That we have that kind of alumni base that doesn't matter who's coaching now, they still want the university to be, prominent in the basketball world.
Well, what's weird to me is that Coach Crum, he stuck around Louisville and was supportive of the program, even though I know him and Jurich didn't really care for each other at all, especially, the way that whole thing ended when Jurich got here and Crum stepped down, air quotes. But, he was still around the program, still very supportive. But a lot of the Crum players, not all of them, some of them were very supportive the entire time. So I don't want to throw a blanket statement on all of them. But a lot of the outspoken disdain about our program came from Crum's regime and some of the Crum players. So it's weird to see. I can't think of hardly any Rick Pitino players that hold disdain towards Louisville. Yet Rick Pitino himself clearly has some issues with us. It clearly has issues with the program. And it doesn't matter that all the people that were involved in it are gone. He still holds some sort of resentment there. Whereas all the players, now I can think of a guy like a Zach Price, for example. I have to go like really far back. But he had beef with Louisville and Pitino, really.
Yeah.
His beef was directed at Pitino. So, like, when it comes to the Pitino players, it's just weird to see this almost opposite scenario where the head guy who they all love, I mean, if you talk to any of them, they all love Rick Pitino to this day.
Yeah.
But they all love Louisville. And so it's a weird situation. It's just uncomfortable. And I guess we can transition. I know a lot of people are wanting to talk about the Rick Pitino stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I'll start with you guys. I want to hear your all's thoughts on it. I've got plenty of my own, but what were your first thoughts when you hear Rick Pitino is endorsing UK football NIL?
Josh, I'll let you go first, man.
Oh, I was going to say, Pat, you brought up a really good point about this, so I was going to let you take that down. I'll save that one for you. But I think, Ethan Moore today in our group chat said something that I thought really captured my thoughts really well as well. He mentioned that, UK fans treated him so poorly and said really nasty things about him and really came after him personally, not just as a coach. And for him to just still support them it's just gross. I think we talked about with Louisville fans, sure, there's some fans who, I think there's some fans who actually would still want Rick as coach if they could have it that way. But even the fans who aren't as high on Rick Pitino anymore, they don't come at him personally. They're more so like, yeah, he had some issues, admittedly, but no hard feelings and kind of okay with that mutual breakup. So it's just interesting to see like the way that our fan base is towards him and the way their fan base was, and like he's still giving him the hawk Tua. It's like I just don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. There's a lot that goes through my mind with this. I wasn't extremely happy when we fired Rick. I understood it, but I also thought that if we were a UK, a Kansas, a Duke that went through that stuff, that we would still have kept Pitino. I mean, Kansas basically went through similar stuff and kept Self. So I wasn't a huge fan of the firing of Pitino. And for me, Pitino is the guy. I mean, I caught the later Crum years that weren't as successful. So both Pitino as a U of L fan, for me, is the guy that brought us a national championship that I got to witness. So I'm very thankful for him. Whether that thing's in the record books or not, I think it eventually will be back there. I don't care. I witnessed it. And I'm thankful for that.
Mike, right there, man.
I get this sense from Rick that he has this grudge against Louisville, whether right or wrong. And like a lot of the stuff he does now is to piss off Louisville. And it kind of blows my mind because I understand being mad at the people that got you fired, but the fan base, as you have said, Josh, has been very supportive. So to like do stuff like that, and maybe us as U of L fans, we're in our feelings, and maybe none of this has to do anything with us, but it just feels that way. And then if I'm St. John's, I'm like, what is going on here? This guy is at least saying that he's giving NIL money to UK football, which he can't give it. St. John's doesn't have a team.
UK football.
Yeah. St. John's doesn't have a football team. So, okay. And you can't give NIL to your own program, whatever. But like indirectly, you are giving money to the competition because yes, you might not be giving money to their basketball program, although he said he would when.
Yeah, he probably is.
He probably is.
Even if you're only giving money to the football program, indirectly, you're giving money to the basketball program because UK's got a pool of NIL that is not, designated to one sport. And now that if Rick Pitino wrote a $100K check to the football, well, they can say, well, Rick did this to football, so we can spend $100K now on basketball. So indirectly, you're helping someone that you're competing against for recruits. I don't get it. And if I was St. John's AD and I heard that, I'd be like, what's going on here, dude? Well, wait till you retire and then you can support whoever you want, but you need to be supporting our program right now. Right. It kind of blows my mind, man. And I think some of it's probably him talking to get a reaction. But if that's truly happening, I'm like, what's going on, man?
I find the whole situation sad, which is what I wrote on Twitter. And I feel like people use that to be like, I can't believe you guys are so shocked that Rick Pitino would do something like this. First of all, nobody knew Rick Pitino was going to donate to UK football. Nobody. I don't want to hear that people. I don't want to hear that. So that's crazy. That's the point. Like, it's gotten that bad. Like, the reason it's sad is because I will always cherish the Rick Pitino era. We may never have an era in our lifetime as good as the Rick Pitino era. I hope we do, but we absolutely had some of our greatest memories. Like, Pat, I'm the same age as you. Like, our best memories, as you said, are the Rick Pitino era. I just hate the way that it ended. Like, I cannot stand the extremism in the fan base either, where if you say that you're sad that it happened and that you wish things ended different, that means you are all in on Rick Pitino. Or it's the opposite, and that you think Rick Pitino can do no wrong. You haven't gotten over him yet. And then the other end is that you just absolutely have to hate the guy and discount everything he did here and disown him completely. I guess the reason I'm sad is because I don't understand why it has to be this way now. Like, I just don't get it. Like, okay, I understand the way that you feel like things ended here were wrong, but you did play a part. We can all sit here and parse how much blame Rick Pitino deserves, but at the end of the day, he's the head coach, and he had multiple issues under his watch. I think the bigger issue was kicking Jurich out after one. You know, that was wild. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but to me, that was the one that was like, okay, this is clearly political, something beyond like my comprehension. So, but the Rick Pitino thing, you could point to things that happened under his watch and be like, look, multiple things, brother. So the fans, though, have always stuck behind him for the most part. There's a few that have always not liked him, but the fans in general have always been like, you know, Rick's our dude. We stick with Rick, and we wish him nothing but the best going forward. Again, that doesn't mean that we're longing to have Rick Pitino return. It's just we were hoping things would end on good terms and he would eventually come back around. But it almost seems like he does this stuff intentionally to take jabs at Louisville. And people can say, well, it's not meant to be at the fans. But that's all that's left from that regime. The only people left at Louisville from all that stuff happening are us as the fans. The leadership's all gone. The board of trustees is turned over, and the athletic department is completely revamped. So this is just jabs at us. And it annoys me because he just can't stay out of limelight, man. Like, what's his obsession with Kentucky sports? Like, you're the St. John's coach. You're St. John's coach. You continue to talk about the state and you're obsessed. Like, you have to get on UK stuff. Of course, you talk about your time at Louisville on there too. Like, move on, man. Like, if you don't like us, fine, but like, stop doing this.
Yeah.
Like, just stop.
I also think that the timing's interesting. I mean, there's two events, you know, because I mean, the last 5 years, you really haven't heard. I mean, Rick would mention his time here, mention his time at Kentucky, but it wasn't a full on, you know, rah, you know, Kentucky is the best thing that ever happened to me, that it's been for the past like few months. So
even before Pope got there.
Yeah. So two things have happened. One, Calipari's no longer at Kentucky. So maybe Rick feels like, well, now that his arch nemesis is gone, I can suck up to Kentucky fans again and get into their good graces because now they hate Cal. Or not. And number two, involving us, is it's the first time in 5-6 years that we have some really positive momentum with our basketball program and look to finally be turning the page from the successful Pitino era to another hopefully successful era. I didn't, again, hindsight's 2020, but the feeling I have now about our basketball program wasn't there when Mac got hired, and it wasn't really Mac's fault. It was still the stench of penalties and stuff like there, and it definitely wasn't there when KP was hired. So it's weird that it's almost like Pitino, like his bat signal went up of Louisville fans are finally happy. Kentucky fans finally, hey, Calipari, it's my turn to piss off Louisville fans and get back in Kentucky fans' good graces.
Which is crazy because in the comment go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, and I love, I'll say it again. I love Pitino for what he did here. And he's, in my opinion, whether I hate him or love him, he's the greatest college basketball coach ever. Now, Hurley might have something to say about that in a few years, but if you are contributing to the University of Kentucky sports, you're my enemy. You're my enemy. I do not like you, and I can't support you. You are helping the team that I hate. And you're not helping my team, who you also coach for. And I don't blame you for not helping our team. I don't blame you for not putting NIL money into our program. Hell, again, I don't think you should be putting NIL money anywhere. But to put it into the team down the road that this fan base can't stand, that there's this animosity, it's freaking a shot to the U of L fan base, whether you mean it or not. And it's bullshit.
Yeah, and Anthony makes the point earlier. He goes on KSR after KSR trashed him for years. Like, Matt Jones made a living off of trashing Rick Pitino. He built his following off of trashing Louisville and trashing Rick Pitino. Like, now, granted, he's been innovative in this field and did things early on, blazed some trails, but the content was coming after Louisville, making fun of Rick Pitino every chance he got, stoking that flame for UK, and then he goes on to kiss his ass. Goes on KSR, which I haven't heard I didn't hear the interview, so I don't know if he was with Matt Jones, but Matt Jones runs KSR, so either way, it was Matt Jones's show, and it just blows my mind. Like, it's clearly a jab. He likes UK and whatever, but it's clearly like it's a double-edged sword. The other part of it is, things didn't end the way I wanted at Louisville and all that. And he threw a couple of jabs out there. And let us not forget that Richard Pitino was interested in this job and was a name that gained a ton of traction. And all of a sudden he withdrew his name because his dad wasn't comfortable with it. But, man, he really pushed Mark Pope to UK. Oh, and here's another thing. Maybe I've missed it. I don't know if Rick Pitino ever – and somebody in chat can let me know – if Rick Pitino ever publicly endorsed Peyton Siva after he took a position. I know he's not the head coach, but Louisville gave him his first opportunity to get into coaching, and Peyton Siva, like Mark Pope, helped him win a national championship. And so I'm just curious where the backing is for him compared to Mark Pope, who I know the argument is, well, Mark Pope's the head coach. Fine. But has he even acknowledged at all that,
I don't think so.
Congratulations, you got a great opportunity at Louisville. I mean, publicly, like he has Mark Pope, and not that Peyton Siva would ever be like, well, I want that. I know he wouldn't. That's not my point. I want to clarify. Like, I know Peyton Siva loves Rick Pitino. He's made that very clear. I know he's very thankful for Rick Pitino. My point is Rick's mindset towards us as the fans and the fan base and the school versus them down the road. It blows my mind because even the fans that have never liked Rick since he left, even the few media guys, and we know who they are, that like put a target on Rick's back and were like, you got to go. And then after he left, pissed on his grave, all that, it pales in comparison to what happened to him at UK, the way they treated him. It just pales in comparison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and there's a couple other things I want to talk about. One, the sad thing about this is I feel like, let's say 5 years from now, and maybe stuff gets mended, but if this didn't happen and Rick came back to the Yum Center next year with St. John's and played us, I feel like the fan base would give him a standing ovation.
They would have,
saying we're thankful for what you did here. But like, it's just so weird to do this to people, a fan base that, has been behind you even after you've left this program. It kills me. And then the other thing that really blows my mind and why I think half of this is a joke is him and Mark Stoops are friends. I mean, could you think of two
The worst.
totally different fucking people?
Yeah, right.
I
Right.
mean, that's like, that's like Joe Biden going on tonight and saying him and Donald Trump are actually really good friends. I mean, it's like two
Whoa.
completely opposite people, man.
Yeah.
And
It's sorority party jokes in there somewhere.
Yeah, right.
and it just blows my mind. And that's why I think half of it's just a joke and him talking to piss people off on one side and to, make the other side love him again.
Yeah.
I just don't get the fascination with this state. Like he cannot let this state go. He's always got to insert himself into this state's happenings. Like he can't just let it go.
Mhm.
It's definitely an ego thing. Even if you were doing that, like why get on a radio show and tell everybody that you're doing that? Like why?
It's weird, man.
It's weird.
God, it's desperate, man. It's just desperate. And it's also, while it's desperate, it's just a shot at us. And I just can't wrap my mind around it.
Yeah. Well, and it just seemed really unnecessary. Like you said, like he's almost just like bored. So he's like, why, how can I mess with Louisville fans tonight?
Right.
Like literally.
And in UK, like the fixation on this area, it just blows my mind. I'm like,
when I don't know if you all saw the Terry Miners tweet. Did you see that?
So.
It was, and I'm paraphrasing, and hopefully it wasn't something somebody posted in our Discord that was totally fake, because with our Discord, you never know.
Yeah. Right.
But Terry tweeted out that, hey, Kentucky has always been Rick's love. Louisville was just a job, and then said that the passcode to get into the practice facility when he was here was 1996. And which is why I think it's a joke, because someone doing that, doing your national championship at a rival to get into the practice facility would just blow my mind.
That would be weird.
Well, and it's interesting to see the media members and then certain people like in the social media world that are connected to that regime, like friends with them. This is why, to me, like you can't run a platform successfully or a media platform successfully if you're too connected to the people that you're covering, because it makes you biased. It makes you form biases. Like this whole idea, like I know somebody one time tried to throw a jab back when all that stuff happened a while back, where they were like, you guys are probably just trying to get media passes so that you can get close to the team in this. No. I mean, listen, I don't want close attachments. I want to be a fan. I want to be a fan who can speak his mind and not feel like somebody's looking over my shoulder, threatening access. I also don't want to form these super close friendships to the point where the friendship itself either A, clouds my judgment, or B, like I start walking on eggshells, so I don't want to upset them, but there's things that need to be said and I'm just not saying them. A good example in the mainstream world was when Charles Barkley and Michael Jordan quit becoming friends because Chuck always says what he thinks, and it pissed MJ off, and so MJ just never talked to him again. It was about him being a bad owner, and like he didn't call him a bad owner, but he said he's not making good decisions as an owner of a franchise. Yeah. And he's not a basketball player anymore. He needs to think like an owner, and that pissed MJ off. But Chuck always said, I was never going to let our friendship get in the way of telling the truth.
Yeah.
So it's funny to watch some of these guys try to justify why Rick's not really a UK guy. He doesn't care about them. And, you got to think he wants Jurich honored. And it's like, none of that. You're not first off, Rick is a UK guy. And I think Rick is a Rick guy.
Yeah.
Let me
I
be
mean,
very clear.
that's the key right there.
Rick's a Rick guy, but for whatever reason, he thinks UK benefits him right now. Like Rick's always a Rick guy, and I'm just being honest. As much as I've loved Rick Pitino, he's got a bit of the narcissism in him, and that's just me being honest. That's my opinion. And right now, UK for whatever reason is where he thinks he can stroke his ego, but he absolutely is a UK guy right now, and no matter what happened with Jurich, it doesn't excuse what he's doing to our fan base right now.
Yeah, and Pat, that tweet was real. Like I looked up the Terry Miners tweet. It's a real tweet, and like nobody knows Rick Pitino like Terry Miners. Like he's always had a real good, like I don't know, source there, whatever it is. Like they've always been really close. But yeah, he said the password was 1996 to get into the practice facility. Like that's wild to me.
Blows my mind. Yeah, his whole tweet is despite this moment in Rupp, which he shows Rick flipping off the UK fans. Rick Pitino's love for all things UK athletics is genuine. He gave it his all trying to beat Kentucky men's basketball when he coached for Louisville, but his most joyous era was at UK. During his tenure at U of L, the practice facility door code was 1996.
I mean, I don't mind that his most joyous part of his tenure was at UK. That doesn't bother me at all. But you came here to the rival. Like you came here. Nobody made you come here. Obviously, Tom Jurich reached out and wanted you to come here, but nobody forced you to. And just because things didn't end well with that regime, I just feel like there's a lot of like, let me get back into good graces of UK as if I never went to Louisville. And like he understands the rivalry.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the weird thing about Rick Pitino is he could actually be the only guy that could somewhat unite Louisville and UK fans if he played his cards right. But instead, he spent his entire time here shaming UK fans. And then after he left here, now he's back to shaming this university and kicking their ass and saying, I totally understand now. I get it. I see the light. But he can't see the light without throwing little jabs at Louisville.
Yeah. And listen, I get
you can be the only guy that's like a hero in the bluegrass for both sides, but you instead like you're like back and forth villain hero. It's just drama.
Yeah, and I get him. You know, I think it's weird being rah when you're coaching a Division I team, but I get the fact that his former player is coaching at UK, so he supports, his former player and wants his former player to succeed at the place he used to be successful. What I don't get is supporting their football program. What I don't get is the unnecessary jabs at our, fan base, which again, maybe he doesn't mean it towards our fan base, but it is towards our fan base.
It is.
That's the stuff I don't get. It's like, listen, we're smart. Most people in our fan base are smart. We understand that you're going to root for your former player to succeed. We get that. We accept that. But when you start doing weird stuff, man, that's when you're going to piss us off. And you're smart enough where if you're doing that weird stuff, you're doing it on purpose, man.
Right.
And you're doing it to piss us off.
He's done that game for years. So he did it to Calipari, took little shots, and Cal did it back to him. He's done that in a lot. He does it to Danny Hurley now. Like he knows what he's doing. He's not oblivious to like if I get up there and kiss their ass, he knows how we're gonna feel. And that's kind of what bothers me. It's like, why do like we have such great memories? I'm not a guy that wants Rick, and that's another thing that drove me nuts on. It's like if you say it's sad that this happened and you wish it ended different, like you're longing for Rick Pitino. Rick Pitino's old as hell, man. Like he can't come here now. I'm sorry. Like there's people that might want him, but my God, like I want somebody that's younger. Like I just wanted us to be like able to look at the Rick Pitino regime and still look at him as a coach that we like enjoyed, and we hate how it ended, but like we still respect and root for him outside of, if he plays Louisville. But no, Like no, not a chance now.
Yeah, and there's nobody.
Now I just want to screw off. Like I want to just leave us out of everything.
Yeah.
Well, and there's nobody who understands the rivalry better than he does. Like he really gets it, and like he knows the Louisville fan base. He knows they can, like he understands all of that background, right, for both fan bases. And so when he says things and he does things, he knows. He knows exactly how it's going to affect us. He knows exactly what it'll do. And again, I think it goes back to what you said earlier, Kyle. Like he just cares about Rick first.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it puts him in the spotlight. And again, man, it's one of those things. It's like Kentucky football. You knew exactly what would piss us off the most, man. You saying that you support and are donating money to Kentucky football. Kentucky freaking football.
You know damn well he knows the Brahms are our coach and what the Brahms mean to Louisville football.
Oh yeah.
You know damn well he knows that. Like that's not something where you can be like, oh, I'm sure he wasn't thinking about. It's Rick Pitino. He knows.
Exactly, man.
Trent, we appreciate the donation, man. He says Simon Begg is amazing in episode 5 of The Boys, which is funny you bring that up. I am going ahead and watch that as soon as we wrap up this pod tonight. I will be watching The Boys. If you haven't seen The Boys,
but I want to. My wife watches it.
Your wife watches The Boys and you don't?
Yeah, well, you know, it's something she started watching like during a tax season one time when I couldn't watch. You know,
I got questions, Pat.
And then once she gets so far ahead, it's like I have to try to catch up, and it becomes daunting.
She's got to be super cool, Kyle, because she's a UK fan, so she has to have a bunch of cool traits about her, right?
Pat, how happy is your wife about Rick Pitino today?
He doesn't see this. He doesn't. I until she listens to her KSR when I'm not around, she won't even know it happens.
Oh, that's dirty.
Even think about that's like cheating, man. Like
sneaking
behind your back.
It's funny, man. I'll come down in the morning sometimes, and I'll come down the stairs, and I can hear it. And immediately when she hears me, she'll turn it off because she knows I'll go batshit crazy if I get to the kitchen and that thing's still on.
If I take 5 more steps.
Pat, do you have your office is obviously decorated U of L. Do you have a UK room in your house then? Like a guest room?
No, the worst thing we have is some UK cups, which I might piss in one time. And we have a UK blanket, which I use to dry off the dog after it's been raining outside. Oh, and we have a UK towel, which this isn't. This
like your ass.
No. But this, all right. So my big thing is before a big game. I won't do it to the UK game, but before a big game, I will use the UK towel after a shower. I did it before the Notre Dame football game. We're like. Our win percentage in big games when I use the UK towel is like 80%. It's like reverse. It's my superstition. It's the reverse jinx stuff, man.
Weird.
Plus, I kind of like. It's not like a normal like dry off when I use the UK towel. You know.
It goes in.
It's an intense dry off. It's like
I dry off more. I dry off some places more than others. You know,
that towel nose thing. Oh god.
Oh, the UK towel. Hey Pat, we're gonna need to see this.
80%, man. That's to me. That's not enough. Like I would have to know
that
if I'm
good,
using
man.
a
Big
UK
game.
towel. I would have to know if I'm using the UK towel. It has to be 100% of the time. 100% win. First time we lose after I use a UK towel, that thing's out.
Pat, we need to see this thing.
I don't want to see it. It sounds like
I don't know where it is now, man.
Sounds like the towel's been through some things in its life that it doesn't want to. It probably can't share on a pod.
So Pat, my grandparents were split Louisville and UK, and they used to watch the Louisville UK game together, and like they were very like proper, like they could
can't
get
do
through
that.
it. But there'd reach a point where one of the teams would start to like pull away, and whoever's team was winning, they would get up and walk out of the room like, I know this is not going to be good if I stay. So they'd always know.
See, my dad I only visit every other weekend because my stepdad was a big Louisville fan growing up.
Mm-hmm.
My dad though was a casual fan's casual. He wasn't like me. Like I would live, eat, breathe, and sleep football and basketball. Could tell you everything about every team as a kid. Now I still know everything about us. But I could tell you everything about all the basketball and all the football teams as a kid. My dad didn't know shit. But if I was at his house the weekend we played UK, I could not even stomach hearing him even cheer for them. And damn well knowing he didn't even know half the players' names because he was a casual. It just made me sick, man. Like, I don't know how you do it, Pat. And
Dude, my wife will tell you that when a UK game's on, I will not be in, whether they're playing Louisville or not, I won't be in the same room as her until there's like 2 minutes left and they're down by like 5 or 6.
So you're like a reverse of my grandparents. My grandparents would get up to be respectful. You like come in and like dig it in.
Well, and I'm not disrespectful. Well, I probably am disrespectful to her because she knows what I'm doing, but I'll be like, oh, it sucks. Looks like you guys are going to lose, and be like, sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Pat, you should go in and be like, I think they have a chance. I think they're going to do it.
Here's my question about the towel, though. I'm assuming you use the towel before you bathe, because if you're putting a UK towel on you after you bathe, you're even dirtier than you were before you bathed to begin with. Like that towel is dirtier than anything that you could experience.
Yeah. It touches the dirtiest parts of my body, so that's what it's mostly touching. I mean.
I was just saying, that wildcat tongue on one of those looks a little bit risky, so I'm hoping it's not that.
Yeah. It might be used, it might be used if the dog ever has an accident. It's probably used to clean that up.
That's so funny.
All right. Well, we did have a football commitment today from Eric Hazzard. So Jeff Bromland's another 2025 guy, which that's been a whole interesting roller coaster, the 25 class. I will say Eric Hazzard, the edge that committed today, wrote that he's 100% committed.
Oh, boy. Kiss of death.
So I'm already expecting him to decommit any moment.
Sorry, I jumped in here.
And the smart alecks will go, because I've mentioned on Twitter, I'm like, kiss of death, 100% or 1,000%, either one of those. You say that, you're decommitting, and it happens almost every time. So then somebody will always respond, well, would you rather they say they're 75% committed? No, I'd rather them just say they're committed.
Yeah.
That's it. Let's not put a number on it.
I think the higher the percent, the more likely they are to decommit. So if it's like 10,000%, like they're total.
10,000%, they may not make it through the night.
Right. 100%, 50-50. But 1,000%, they're definitely flipping.
Yeah, it's over. Like,
it's
kiss of death. It's not good for us. It's the same thing as like in football when if the backup quarterback plays, I don't care who the quarterback was, how good he was. If the backup's playing against us, we're losing, or he's at least scorching us in a win. Yeah. Like we barely beat Virginia with their backup in, and he scorched us, that freshman kid. I can't remember his name now, but the only backup we didn't struggle with was the Florida State third string guy, but he was third string. Maybe that's why. But second string, you're effed. Like
you might as well play the second string against.
You can tell me Patrick Mahomes is playing for Miami. And then Patrick Mahomes gets hurt, and the backup is like Tyler Van Dyke, when he was there. I'm freaking spooked. Like, give me Patrick Mahomes. Don't give me a backup quarterback. Because the same thing it's like I've got these superstitions, man. And the same thing, like when you're 100% committed, I'm nervous. But anyway,
Dude, I think in like the second string quarterbacks, they always are like really odd guys too. Like it'll be like he's from Canada and he's only been playing football for 2 seasons
Pitt's
and he's a
backup quarterback
lefty.
looked like Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We
yeah,
got
he's
torched
also
in
a
the
model. Yeah.
monsoon by Jake Gyllenhaal.
And they're like, these quarterbacks have all the tools, and if they just put it together, they'll be amazing. And then for us, they put all the tools together, and like the lefty that's been playing football for 2 seasons goes for like 300 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns, or like something wild,
Yeah, I'm totally superstitious about these things. 100% committed makes me nervous. I did watch film of this kid, this Eric Hazzard. I think there's some tools to work with. I will say I think he has strength for his size, and he is able to, gravitate to the ball. Based on the video I saw, though, I will be honest, I didn't see a whole lot of technique. I didn't see a lot of advanced technique, a lot of the big plays he made. Either he didn't get blocked at all, or he just ran past his offensive lineman. He just ran right past them. And I just didn't see a whole like swim moves, spin moves, any of that type of stuff. Didn't see a whole lot of that going on. So that would be a concern. But he made some plays. He looks like he's got a good motor. And there's probably some tools there to work with.
Yeah. His highlights, and I expect this is most edge highlights, are ones where like the average fan like me, you guys, like we can't get much from those highlights. I'm sure coaches probably can't get a ton from the highlights I watched.
Yeah.
And so you're hoping that, coaches have a lot more video and tools available and have probably seen this guy in a camp against other guys that are actually D1 talent linemen, because I'm telling you, some of the offensive linemen in these videos look like me, and I'm like 5'9" and 160. So, not very hard to get past. But I did see like he seemed to stay engaged, which is sometimes hard for an edge guy throughout the plays. There was plays he made on the other side of the field. There was broken down plays that he, came across the field and made. So that motor, like you said, Kyle, seems to be there, which if you've got a motor, you can usually play above your talent level. And I don't know this kid's talent level from the video, but motor is always a good trait to have, especially at the edge. So, yeah, there were some good things, but it was hard to really take anything from a technical standpoint away from the video that was available on Huddle.
Yeah, I watched a couple on YouTube, Pat, and like I think one was shot from the U.S. space station. I'm not sure where they had
a
that
bunch of ants down there. I'm like, I think that's him.
I think they used a drone, to be honest with you. Like it was such a high angle, like you couldn't really take much from it. And then the other highlight I watched of him was like super zoomed in, and it was just like big hits. But it seemed like, I think to your point, the level of competition was not great. I don't know how many balls got like thrown into his chest or like bounced off his helmet in that highlight video. But I mean, you could tell he had college size. Like he is a big dude.
Yeah.
Like you said, he has a good motor. I mean, to be honest with you, it sounds a lot like a lot of the other recruits. Like they have the size. You can see the talent there, but they need some work to really be college ready. I think it fits in with a lot of the other Brom recruits. But yeah, it's hard to take much from those videos, Pat.
Yeah.
So LeBron Hill decommitted earlier this week. Now he was 1,000% committed. It lasted 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So people think, well, he's probably just using one example. No, I've got a lot of examples in there. Jake Cook, 100% committed. He elaborated on that in his recruiting article, and then it was 2 weeks later he decommitted. I understand why he did. Dream school 20 minutes down the road, but again, 100% committed means you're never going to leave. But anyway, so LeBron Hill, I don't know how you guys felt about that. Was that one of the guys you were really like at the top of your all's list looking forward to, or was it just like, okay, we can probably find somebody else?
Yeah. I always hate when someone decommits to comment on it afterwards, because if you say I'm okay with losing that guy, it sounds like sour grapes. But this is a guy that when he committed, I think we analyzed him on here, and
We
you
did.
say, hey, he looks okay. There's a lot of stuff he needs to work on. He's not quick off the line of scrimmage, doesn't have blazing speed, obviously had some height, and looked like he had some physical tools. But, when you're talking about wide receiver prospects, there's a lot of guys like him out there. And I don't want it to sound like sour grapes, but it's not the biggest loss in the world. Would I be happy to have him still committed here? Sure. He looks like a D1 receiver, but I also think there's a lot of guys with the amount of time we have left that we could replace him with that are equal, talent level wise.
Yeah, I think you guys captured a lot of my same thoughts for LeBron Hill, but Kyle, I can't get over your PTSD of 1,000%. I'm worried your wife's gonna write honey, I'm 1,000% committed to this marriage.
Better
and you're
not.
Be ah!
Better not. Tell me you're committed.
It's gonna come back and get you.
Better not. But I've never understood 1,000% either. 1,000% is 100% isn't enough. I gotta add another zero on there.
Yeah, right. How can I make this sound like I'm really into this?
Yeah, I think psychologically that means that you're probably not.
Yeah, right. You have to talk yourself into it.
Yeah, exactly.
85 is much better in that situation,
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing. What if these kids were all just extremely honest when they were committed, and we're like, yeah, I'm committed to Louisville right now. There's probably a 90% chance I make it to campus, but if so-and-so comes and offers, I'm gone. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I'm really looking for $80,000 in NIL. They're just not doing it.
Yeah. I would actually respect that more though. If somebody was like, I'm committed 75%, I'm still gonna look at other, then I don't have any expectations. But it's happened so many times now to where, Josh, like I said, you say you're 100% committed. Now my expectation is you're not coming. So
no,
let's hope that turns around for this kid, and let's hope he comes here and lights it up for us. And it might take him a couple of years before he gets on the field. Still a lot of argument out there about how much high school recruiting versus portal. That seems to be a never-ending conversation. I see it. It's not just in our group chat, which it is in there all the time. But I do see it on other platforms as well. It just seems to be I don't know. It seems very clear. The staff's whole goal is to take mostly diamonds in the rough from high school and not utilize a whole bunch of resources on that and then to dump it all in the portal. So there will be a lot of pressure on this staff to hit the portal big, hit the jackpot big time in the portal. That's going to be a big thing. That there's going to be a lot of pressure there.
Yeah, you look at our roster this year and what we're bringing in freshman class-wise so far and who's kind of in the trenches. You do have some young guys that I think will step up this year and in future years in Sanker, Williams, Clark. Hopefully it sounds like Capers has turned the corner. But, the majority of your first – second string guys again are going to be senior guys that you're going to have to replace again next year. So it's going to be another heavy portal year, I think. And it's, we've talked about this ad nauseum on here, so I don't want to get too far into it again, but it's going to be interesting to see if Brom ever kind of flips the switch and is like, all right, instead of being one of the top 5 adders every year in the transfer portal, we're going to shift down and be, more in the 15 to 20 range. And I do think Louisville is going to have to live in that 10 to 20 range in terms of ads every year from the portal because we're not a traditional power. But I think you can live in there and still build a base with your high school guys. And it'll be interesting to see if Braum ever makes that switch, or maybe Braum's just a great talent evaluator, and a lot of these guys that he's getting, he knows will turn out in 3 years, and maybe they will, and maybe this is an awesome strategy. Until it fails, it's hard to really go completely against it. But I think as fans, it's okay for us to question, what is this going to look like in the future?
To me, it's still unknown, and I know that one of our co-hosts on the pod thought he had a gotcha moment with me in the group chat one night because I had made the comment that, I understand we did well in the portal and had a good year last year, but he inherited a lot of guys, and I listed some guys, and they were all from the portal as well, which wasn't my point. That was under a different coach. My point was the roster wasn't completely flipped over. You had like Ashton Gelati, Quincy Riley, but you did have some guys like Ben Perry, for example, and which Ashton Gelati actually was from
high school guy.
High school. So, but the guys I named were all portal guys that night. But my point was more like, hey, we really don't know. Like, if you turn over an entire roster every year and hit the portal with 30 guys, eventually your entire roster, except for like just very few sprinkled in high school guys, is all portal. We don't know how that's going to be yet. But I did have a thought because, I would like more balance from high school. I've talked about that on previous episodes. But I could see a world where maybe you don't really recruit very many offensive and defensive linemen from high school because it usually takes them a couple years to develop into their body. At least the guys we usually land. We very rarely land a guy whose body is ready for college year one on the front lines. So I could see a world where you just go in the portal and get a guy who's already physically developed. But then, like, I still at the skill positions would like us to balance out some high school guys. I don't know what y'all's thoughts are on that strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Braum, the thing is, like, he's going to figure out a way to be successful. So, like, that's why I'm hopeful, is I feel like no matter which way we end up needing to go, I feel like he'll take us down the right path. But, yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting question, and one that clearly we're not the only ones thinking about, So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I can hear my daughter stomping through the house, and she's got the fridge open, and she's yelling for her mom, and I'm like, I bet they can't hear anything I'm saying right now. So they're going wild upstairs.
Yeah. But no, it's, I mean, your puzzling look and remark there is kind of true though, Josh. It is kind of, as I said earlier, like how is this is this our strategy every year, or is this going to change? And to your point, Kyle, like, I do agree with you, at our level, getting guys for the defensive and offensive line out of high school, those guys are the first that the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Clemsons, the Florida States go and get. So it's hard to get, even if you're spending NIL money, it's hard to get big time high school recruits on the line. So is that where you really consistently attack the portal, is on the line, which is consistently what we've done so far. But
that would make more
sense.
We've
consistently done it at almost every position so far.
True. Yeah.
So do we say, okay, these are the portal areas every year, but we think we can attack high school and develop guys at this position? And that's just, it's a question that in 4 or 5 years we'll probably figure out. And I think Braum is one of these guys that, and this is what I really admire about him, is he seems to constantly be able to morph based off of the college landscape, and based off of his roster. I mean, last year we ran the ball a lot because that's what the roster said we should do, even though Braum is known as a prolific, air it out coach. So I do admire him for that, but it'll be interesting in 5 years to see what exactly we're doing portal and high school recruiting wise.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, I think I got my mic back now, but no, what I was trying to say was, I think when you look at the schools that were, yep, that's exactly what I had going on. I think when you look at who Louisville is, like, who does our blueprint follow right now? It's most closely aligned to Colorado, and I'm just not so sure that that's the company I want to be in,
Yeah, that's exactly
right?
why I get nervous.
Like if you look, like, success leaves clues, and who else in that bucket that we're in with Colorado has really been successful? I mean, I'd say we were probably the most
We had a
successful,
great year
right?
last year, all things considered. I mean, it didn't
Yeah,
end the way we wanted it, but I mean, the overall year was a positive.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so, but again, I still don't think it's a weird thing. Like, the staff did a great job. They filled the holes they needed to. Like, they did need to hit the portal hard going into the season with a brand. Like, they need to get their system implemented, get impact guys that fit their system. And also, you have a lot of turnover when a staff changes over. So it made sense. But we still really don't know, because, like, they did have a lot of good, impactful guys that return. So the question will remain unanswered. This year will help answer it more. And then next year, it appears we're going to do the same thing. If by next year he goes into year 3 and he's like crushed it with this, it's like, okay, some of our concerns were completely unwarranted, myself included. And that's what the hope is, because I've never questioned their ability to coach. Like, the Brahms know how to coach. They've been great coaches everywhere they've been. They've elevated every program they've been to. So that's not something that I question. We'll just have to see how it all shapes out in the landscape of college football.
Yeah.
But it's a big talking point. I think there are some fans out there that are questioning what's going on in the 25 class. So it's something to talk about. If fans are talking about it, no matter what side, no matter where you stand on it, it's something worth discussing.
Well, and listen, if we want to win 4 or 5 games a year and be one of the best teams in NCAA football, the video game, every year, then we should follow the Colorado model, because my God, that game has them rated high, which I'm sure we'll talk about on tomorrow's episode. But
yes, I'm not going to give anything away, because I know Ty is going to run that show. Ty is our biggest CFB fan of them all. So that's a good segue into tomorrow's episode. Tomorrow, we have a lot of NCAA college football 25 stuff. So one thing this channel has been able to start doing is, obviously, we're Louisville first. We have the Louisville content pods, but we've also, we got a good guest from college football, the Matt Brown, college football 25 guy that knows, like, everything going on about it. Extra points is where he works, and he deals with that, but he's done the football stuff on the side. We really kind of got into it. We had the top 10 dynasty schools that got a lot of positive feedback as far as, releasing that video. And then we're going to live stream once we start the actual dynasty tournament that we're going to do as a group. We're going to live stream a lot of that. So we do want to have, like, that part of our content that's geared towards hopefully a lot of Louisville fans that like the game, but also towards different groups of people that may engage with that better. Because there's a lot of people that don't like a big, long podcast, but they love short content on video game type stuff. So, we're here for everybody.
Yeah.
So that being said, tune in tomorrow, EA College Football 25 stuff. If you like what content you hear tonight, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video. It helps spread it to people that may have not heard of us or seen our videos yet. It just helps us out tremendously. We're close to the 4 figures, 1,000. Mike says 25 subs from 1,000. That means we are 97.5% there, guys.
Yeah, I think somebody just subscribed after hearing my UK towel story.
UK towel guy.
Yeah, a UK fan probably.
That's so fun.
All right. Well, that being said, may Pat's towel not have to get too much future use. I'm kind of hoping he gets away from that tradition. But nonetheless, man, we appreciate you guys being on with us today. And thank you all as always. Again, thank you for listening to Third Banner Pod. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Do you guys have any final words?
No, I mean, I'm itching for some U of L sports. That's really my only thing. I can't wait till football starts again so that we can start talking about actual games and stuff. The anticipation is fun.
Pat, you don't have an inch of that UK towel won't scratch.
Yeah. I mean, when I got to start talking about what I do to UK towels, it's the off season. It's summer for sure. But yeah, no, I'm pumped to get the games going, man.
Yeah, no, Kyle, the only thing I have to say is you don't have to worry about Jeff Brom. He said he's 1,000% committed to getting a top 25 high school class. So nothing to worry about.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's what we got today, guys. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, tomorrow, 9:00, Ty will be leading some NCAA stuff. All that stuff that's recently come out, we'll be wrapping all that up. We have a tournament coming up where we're going to do a draft, which is a randomized draft. That will be next Friday's episode. But looking forward to seeing what Ty puts together tomorrow. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Third Banner Pod. Till next time, go Cards.
Go Cards.
Cards.